Factsverse presents Mysterious Rabbit Hole Leads to a 700-year-old Secret Temple Built by the Knights Templar. Before we take you down this rabbit hole, though, do us a favor and click the like button. Also, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. When you hear about rabbit holes and underground worlds, you probably think of Alice in Wonderland. I sure do. When Alice went down the rabbit hole, she encountered things that she had never seen before. She encountered things that she'd never even imagined existed. But what would you think if I told you that something like this really happened in real life? Believe it or not, it has. A mysterious rabbit hole led to a secret 700-year-old temple built by the Knights Templar in Shropshire, England. The site where the rabbit hole lies today is under the ground in a farmer's field. But the farmland didn't exist when the caves were originally constructed. The Knights Templar were not your typical Catholics. They were feared and had some massive military power. The Knights Templar was a group that was made up of noblemen. They were responsible for fighting the Crusades for the Holy Land. This wasn't a group that existed for a few decades. In fact, the Crusades raged on for close to 200 years. Unfortunately, the Knights Templar did fall into ruin when the Crusaders failed to reclaim the Holy Land. That wasn't the worst of it. Each of the members was arrested and executed by King Philip IV of France and Pope Clement V. The charges against the group were secrecy, fraud, and corruption. Before the end of the group and the execution of its members, they created an amazing underground tunnel. The Knights Templar needed a place where they could meet, plan their strategies, make plans. They needed to do this without prying eyes seeing them. Well, people wanted to take down the Knights Templar for centuries, so they needed a private place to meet where they would never be found. To hide themselves, they dug a hole in the ground to gain access to their secret meeting space. The hole to get into the space looked like nothing more than a rabbit hole in the ground. It wasn't the hole that led to the underground cavern that was amazing, though. It was the cavern itself. The cavern they created was carved out in the earth. The architecture of the caves is absolutely amazing. According to many religious scholars who have seen the cavern, it appears that they were hoping to emulate the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. That's because the caverns and the church are very similar. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre is said to be the burial spot of Jesus Christ himself. Since this is considered such a blessed place, the Knights Templar likely wanted to create their own version of it. When the cavern was first discovered, historians and religious scholars from all over the world wanted to visit. They wanted to see the amazing creation under the ground. Unfortunately, not everyone was as impressed as these people. There were many people who went down into the caverns to do more than appreciate the architecture and the religious history there. It's said that some people went down into the cavern to practice black magic. More and more frequently, historians were going into the caverns only to find strange writing on the ceilings and the walls. Many say that the writing is spells associated with black magic. It's also believed that the caves have been visited by druids and pagans, hoping to hold ceremonies during the solstice, on Halloween, and on other days that are considered holidays in those religions. Something had to be done if the caves were going to be preserved. As more people heard about the caverns, the homeless began sleeping there as well. It's said that such an amazing place with incredible architecture was being vandalized. In 2012, the caves were sealed off. The government and religious officials believed that if they didn't seal off the entrance, that the caverns would eventually be destroyed in just the next few years. Today, you cannot go down to see the caverns, at least not the way you could. The typical person can't get into the caverns. Certain people can request permission to enter, though. Religious scholars, documentary producers, and photographers are among of the few select people who have been able to request access and have it approved. When a person does request access to the caves and the request is approved, they're only allowed to go through the rabbit hole with a guide. The guide is someone selected by the government who they can trust to make sure the caverns won't be vandalized even worse than they already are. These underground caverns are incredible. It's sad that a group of vandals have made it impossible for most people to go through the hole to see them. Unfortunately, closing off the caverns was the only way to preserve them. These caverns have been hidden underground for over 700 years. If somebody didn't do something, all traces of the Knights Templar and their legacy would be destroyed. Fortunately, photographers are still allowed to go into the caverns and take photographs like you've been seeing here in this video. That's the only way that we can see these amazing caves. When going down the rabbit hole, you're not going to see the Queen of Hearts or the Cheshire Cat down there the way Alice did when she went down her rabbit hole. What you will find is an amazing cavern that's been down there for centuries. These caverns are unlike anything that anyone's ever seen. The Knights Templar may have been gone for centuries, but thanks to the government, their legacy will now last forever. Subscribe for more!